The sharp crack of the gavel echoed through the courtroom. "Order!" Judge Marianne Cole's voice cut like a blade through the murmuring crowd, but the young man standing before her didn't flinch. He leaned back in the defendant's chair, arms crossed, a smug grin twisting on his lips. Ryan Dalton, 25, expensive suit, eyes full of arrogance. The son of Senator William Dalton, one of the most powerful men in the state. He let out a soft laugh. "You really think this courtroom means anything to me?" He sneered. "Do you know who my father is?" The room went silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Judge Cole adjusted her glasses, her calm gaze never leaving him. "I don't care if your father is the president himself," she said coolly. "In this room, Mr. Dalton, the law is the only power that matters." Ryan smirked. "We'll see about that. I'll be out before sunset, and you'll still be sitting there in that ugly robe pretending to have authority." The audience gasped. The judge's gavel slammed down once more. Her tone dropped, firm, cold, final. "Mr. Dalton," she said, "you may leave this courtroom today, but you'll never walk out of it the same man again. Subscribe to sweet justice if you believe no one should be above the law. Now let's go back to where it all began." Ryan Dalton was born with everything most people could only dream of. A mansion that overlooked the city skyline, private jets, exclusive schools. His life was a golden bubble built by power and money. His father, Senator William Dalton, had been in politics for over 3 decades. To the public, he was a hero, a man of vision and discipline. But behind closed doors, the Daltons lived by one rule: power protects power. Ryan learned that lesson early. When he crashed his first car at 17, the police called his father, not the station. When he got into a fight at college, the dean handled it quietly. And when he was caught cheating on an exam, the professor suddenly resigned for personal reasons. Ryan grew up believing there were 2 kinds of people in the world: those who gave orders and those who obeyed them. And he was convinced he belonged in the first category. But there was one thing Ryan never had: discipline. He partied every night, threw money around like confetti, and treated people as tools. Friends, women, employees, all disposable. He thought the world owed him loyalty because his father owned the world. Then one night, everything changed. It was supposed to be just another wild night at the club. Flashing lights, loud music, and too much alcohol. Ryan's friend Mason was with him. A decent kid, quieter, often dragged into Ryan's chaos. Around 1 a.m., a waitress accidentally spilled a drink on Ryan's jacket. A custom-tailored piece worth thousands. Ryan stood up furious. "Are you blind?" he barked. The waitress, trembling, tried to apologize. But Ryan shoved the glass off the table. The sound shattered across the floor. Everyone turned. Mason grabbed his arm. "Ryan, chill, man. Don't tell me what to do." Ryan snapped. "She ruined my night." Security rushed over, and before long the police were called. It should have been a simple disturbance report. But Ryan, still drunk, refused to cooperate. He pushed an officer, yelled something about how his father would end their careers, and laughed while being handcuffed. He didn't even stay in the cell for an hour. By sunrise, Senator Dalton had made a few calls, and the charges vanished. Ryan left the precinct with his usual smirk, convinced he was untouchable. But what he didn't realize was that a video of the incident had gone viral overnight. Millions saw the senator's son berating officers and mocking the justice system. And among those viewers was Judge Marianne Cole. Judge Cole was known for her calm demeanor and unshakable sense of fairness. She wasn't a celebrity judge or a media figure, but in the courthouse she commanded absolute respect. When she saw the footage, something about it stuck with her. The arrogance, the entitlement, the complete lack of remorse. She didn't know the young man personally, but she knew his father and the way power often shielded privilege. So when weeks later a case file landed on her desk with the name Ryan Dalton attached, this time for reckless endangerment, she paused. Apparently, Ryan had been racing his car through a residential area and nearly hit a pedestrian. The police finally had enough. They wanted this one to stick. Judge Cole looked at the file, sighed, and muttered under her breath, "Looks like life's about to teach him what his father didn't." In the weeks leading up to the trial, Ryan behaved as if it were all a joke. He strutted into the courthouse with designer sunglasses and his father's attorney, a man who'd been cleaning up Dalton family messes for decades. Inside the courtroom, Ryan whispered jokes, rolled his eyes during testimonies, and even chuckled when the victim's lawyer spoke about emotional trauma. The young woman he'd almost hit was there too, Sarah Lewis, a single mother who had been walking home from her night shift. When she described how she'd pulled her daughter out of the way of Ryan's speeding car, her voice cracked. The courtroom fell silent, except for Ryan. He smirked. Judge Cole noticed. Her gavel hit the bench sharply. "Mr. Dalton," she said firmly, "is something funny about this testimony?" Ryan shrugged. "No, Your Honor, I'm just entertained by how dramatic people can be." The audience gasped. Even his lawyer lowered his head. Judge Cole leaned forward. "You find this entertaining?" "The near death of a child?" Ryan met her eyes. "I find it exaggerated. Nothing even happened." Judge Cole's voice hardened. "Something did happen, Mr. Dalton. Something far more serious than you realize. You almost destroyed lives, and you still think this is a game." But Ryan just gave that same cold smile. "Games are what people like me win, Judge." Judge Cole didn't respond. Not yet. But inside she knew this wasn't just a case anymore. It was a reckoning. When the court reconvened the next morning, the atmosphere was different. The media had caught wind of the case. Reporters lined the hallway, their cameras ready. The story of the senator's son who mocked the law had gripped the city. Ryan, however, walked in like a celebrity. He waved to the cameras, adjusted his tie, and flashed a grin. "Smile for justice," he whispered sarcastically to the officer escorting him. Inside, Judge Marianne Cole was already seated, her robe pristine, her expression unreadable. The courtroom lights shone bright across her bench, the American flag hanging solemnly behind her, the gavel resting just inches from her hand. As Ryan entered, she didn't move. She just watched him take his seat, that same careless smirk plastered on his face. "Mr. Dalton," she began calmly, "yesterday this court witnessed your lack of remorse. Today I expect a change in attitude." Ryan leaned back. "You can expect whatever you want, Your Honor. But let's be honest, this is just for show. My father's already got people working on this. You'll get your news headline and I'll get my life back. Everyone wins." Judge Cole blinked once, slowly. "You seem quite certain of your outcome." He chuckled. "I always am." Then she said something that made his smile falter for the first time. "Very well. Let's make sure that certainty is tested." The prosecution began. Sarah Lewis took the stand again, her voice steadier this time. She explained how her 6-year-old daughter had nightmares since that night, how she still flinched at the sound of car engines. Ryan sighed audibly during her testimony. Judge Cole's gaze cut toward him instantly. "Mr. Dalton," she said sharply, "one more interruption and you will be held in contempt." Ryan smirked. "You'll add that to my list of achievements?" The audience gasped. Judge Cole didn't flinch. She leaned forward slightly, her voice measured. "Mr. Dalton, you think your father's power shields you. But power is borrowed, and respect must be earned." He tilted his head mockingly. "Respect is for people who can't buy it." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Judge Cole's hand came down hard on the gavel. "Enough," she commanded. "Officer, remove the defendant's sunglasses and escort him to the witness stand." The officer hesitated, just long enough for Ryan to realize something had changed. The courtroom no longer felt like a stage. It felt like a trap closing in. He was ordered to testify. When he took the stand, Judge Cole didn't question him like a lawyer. She spoke to him like a mirror, calm, firm, relentless. "Mr. Dalton," she began, "why did you refuse to cooperate with police?" "Because they disrespected me," he said flatly. "How?" "They treated me like a criminal." "Were you not arrested?" He paused. "Yeah, but..." "So they treated you according to your actions. Is that what you call disrespect?" Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "You don't get it," he muttered. "Then help me understand," she pressed. "What exactly do you believe the law is?" He leaned back, scoffing. "The law? It's just rules made by people like you to control people like them. People like them," she echoed. Ryan gestured vaguely toward the spectators, the working-class faces, the journalists, the clerks. People who don't matter in the big picture. The silence that followed was suffocating. Judge Cole's tone softened, but her words were knives. And you matter more because your father sits in a higher office? Ryan smiled faintly. Exactly, she nodded slowly. Thank you for your honesty, Mr. Dalton. Then she turned toward the gallery. Ladies and gentlemen, she said clearly, you've just heard a confession, not of guilt, but of ignorance. This young man believes privilege is a substitute for principle. 'Tis not. Ryan scoffed, whispering to his lawyer, She's performing. Judge Cole's eyes caught him. Mr. Dalton, would you care to say that louder? He smirked again. I said you're performing for them. Good, she replied calmly. Because every performance deserves an ending. Her gavel struck once. Court will recess for 1 hour. Ryan left the courtroom fuming. His father's lawyer whispered, We'll appeal this. Don't worry. But the judge had other plans. When the court reconvened, Judge Cole had arranged something no one expected. A playback of footage from Ryan's arrest. The room dimmed as the screen lit up. The sound of Ryan yelling at officers filled the courtroom. His laughter, his insults, his arrogance, all captured in crisp detail. Do you know who my father is? You'll regret this. You're all nobodies. The courtroom watched in disgust. Ryan's father, sitting in the back row, dropped his head into his hands. When the video ended, Judge Cole spoke softly, almost kindly. Mr. Dalton, is that you in the video? Ryan's voice was faint. Yes. And are those your words? Yes, she leaned back. Good, because now the entire city knows who you are. Not as a senator's son, but as a man who forgot his humanity. Ryan looked away. His confidence was cracking. Judge Cole continued, her tone growing sharper. You claim this courtroom means nothing, that justice is a game. Let's test that. She paused, letting the silence hang heavy. Given your repeated contempt and the reckless endangerment of innocent lives, I hereby sentence you to 90 days in county jail, effective immediately. Gasps filled the room. Ryan's eyes went wide. You can't do that. My father, your father, she interrupted, is not on trial. You are. He slammed his hand on the table. This is insane. Judge Cole met his glare with pure composure. What's insane, Mr. Dalton, is thinking that money makes you immortal. Perhaps a few months of silence will teach you what privilege never did. Accountability. Her gavel came down hard. Bailiff, take him into custody. As officers moved in, Ryan stood shouting, You'll regret this. I'll make sure you lose your seat. Judge Cole remained still, her voice calm as marble. Mr. Dalton, if I lose my seat for doing what's right, it will be the proudest loss of my life. The officers pulled him away, his expensive suit crumpling as he resisted. Cameras flashed, the room buzzed, but as Ryan turned for one last look at the judge, he saw no anger in her eyes, only disappointment. And that hurt more than the sentence. Outside, the news headlines exploded. Judge sends senator's son to jail. No one is above the law. Inside his holding cell that night, Ryan sat quietly for the first time in years. No phone, no lawyers, no father to clean up the mess. Just silence, and for the first time, he started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, the judge was right. The first week in county jail was chaos for Ryan Dalton. Gone were the designer suits, the bodyguards, and the comfort of his father's mansion. In their place, concrete walls, a stiff mattress, and silence that stretched endlessly. He'd never been alone like this before. On his first morning, a guard threw a tray of food into his cell. Breakfast, the man grunted. Ryan stared at it in disbelief. Soggy eggs, burnt toast, watery coffee. He kicked the tray away and muttered, You've got to be kidding me. The guard turned back. Eat it or don't. Nobody here cares what your last name is, Dalton. Those words hit harder than he expected. That night, lying on the cold bed, he replayed the judge's words in his mind. Power is borrowed, and respect must be earned. He tried to shrug it off, but the sentence echoed again and again. By the second week, the cameras had moved on. The news cycle shifted. His father, under political fire, made no public statements. In fact, no one from his family came to visit. He asked the warden one afternoon, Did my father schedule a visit? The warden didn't even look up. Nope, nothing on the list. Ryan felt something sink inside him. He had always thought his father would appear, pull some strings, and get him out. But the world outside had grown silent, and for the first time, that silence forced him to listen, not to others, but to himself. Weeks turned into months. One day, while cleaning the hallway floors as part of his assigned duty, an older inmate named Marcus stopped beside him. Marcus had been in for 20 years, a calm, quiet man who kept mostly to himself. He nodded toward Ryan's bucket. "You're scrubbing it wrong, kid." Ryan frowned. "It's just a floor," Marcus smiled. "That's what I used to say. But in here, how you do small things shows who you are when no one's watching." Ryan stared at him. "You sound like the judge," Marcus chuckled softly. "Maybe she's the first one who ever told you the truth." Ryan didn't answer, but something shifted in his expression. For the first time, he wasn't angry, just quiet. Every night after that, he began reading. The jail's small library had a stack of old law books, biographies, and even a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. He read about justice, about men who stood for something, about judges who changed the world. And slowly the arrogance began to peel away, layer by layer. He realized something profound. He had spent his whole life being defended, but never once had he taken responsibility. 3 months later, his sentence ended. When he walked out of the gate, there were no reporters, no cheering crowds, just a quiet wind and an officer handing him his personal belongings. "Free man," the officer said simply. Ryan nodded, clutching the plastic bag with his wallet and watch inside. For the first time, freedom felt heavy. A week later, he did something no one expected. He walked back into the courthouse, the same one where Judge Cole had sentenced him. The clerk at the front desk looked up in surprise. "Can I help you?" Ryan cleared his throat. "I'm here to see Judge Cole. Tell her. Ryan Dalton wants to apologize." The clerk blinked. "Apologize?" He nodded. "Yeah, for being the man I was." She hesitated, but eventually led him to the side chamber. The heavy door opened, and there she was, seated at her desk reviewing files. The sight of her robe, the flags behind her, the quiet authority, it all hit him at once. "Mr. Dalton," she said calmly, glancing up. "I trust this isn't another performance." He shook his head quickly. "No, Your Honor, it's not." She gestured for him to speak. He took a deep breath. "When I walked into your courtroom, I thought the world owed me respect. I thought money could erase consequences. You proved me wrong." Her gaze softened slightly, but she said nothing. "I spent those 3 months angry," he continued. "At you, at the system, at everyone. But somewhere in that anger I realized, you weren't trying to punish me. You were trying to wake me up." Judge Cole leaned back. "And did you?" Ryan smiled faintly. "Let's just say, I finally met someone stronger than my father. The law." The judge's lips curved into a quiet smile. "That's a rare thing for a man your age to understand." He nodded. "I'm trying to earn what I used to demand. Respect." For a moment, silence filled the room, the kind that doesn't need words. Then she said softly, "You can start by using what you've learned. There's a community outreach program for young offenders. They could use someone who knows both sides of the system." Ryan blinked. "You trust me with that?" She smiled faintly. "I don't trust arrogance, Mr. Dalton, but I believe in redemption." He lowered his head respectfully. "Thank you, Your Honor." As he turned to leave, her voice stopped him. "Mr. Dalton," he looked back. "Justice isn't about winning or losing," she said. "It's about becoming someone better because of what you've faced." Ryan smiled. Then I guess justice was served. That evening, he walked outside the courthouse steps, the sunset glowing across the city skyline. Reporters were there again, microphones and cameras flashing, but this time when they asked him, "Ryan, what do you have to say about your case?" He didn't smirk. He didn't boast. He simply said, "The judge was right," and walked away. Weeks later, the newspapers ran a small headline. "Former senator's son volunteers at youth reform program." No drama, no outrage, no political spin, just a quiet story of a man who finally understood that respect couldn't be inherited. It had to be earned. He entered the courtroom as a spoiled man who thought he ruled the world. and left it as someone who finally understood the meaning of sweet justice.